Hi there. Whoa, of course, suddenly my voice goes away as soon as I start talking. Hi, it's Dr. Shiroko, and I'm here today, and I'm so delighted to have my friend Dr. Debi Silber on again to talk about From Betrayal, uh, From Hardened to Healed, which is her new book. And it's all about getting unstuck when you felt betrayed for a long time. So I'm so happy to have you here. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much. Always such a pleasure to chat with you.
Likewise. So, do you want to tell us about your new book and how how it's going to help people who've been stuck in certain places of being betrayed?
Sure.
Sure.
Well, the way all happened was of course, you don't study something like betrayal unless you have to. So I had two really painful betrayals. First, my family, and then a couple of years later, my husband. Got him out of the house and looked at the two experiences, and I was like, well, what's similar to these two? Of course, me.
Mhm.
But what's similar? And I realized boundaries were always getting crossed. I never took my own needs seriously. And I was like, that's it. I'm doing something so big and so different because unless, when nothing changes, nothing changes. So here it was, 4 kids, 6 dogs, a thriving business. And I was 50 and I'm like, we're going back for a PhD. And it was in transpersonal psychology, the psychology of transformation and human potential. And then it was time to do a study. So I studied betrayal. What holds us back? What helps us heal? And what happens to us physically, mentally, and emotionally when the people closest to us lie, cheat, and deceive. That study led to 3 groundbreaking discoveries, which changed my health, my business, my family, my life. So to answer your question in a very long-winded way, the From Hardened to Healed was because one of the discoveries was while we can stay stuck for years, decades, a lifetime, and so many of us do, if we're going to fully heal, we're going to move through 5 now proven predictable stages. And what's even more exciting about that is we even know what happens physically, mentally, and emotionally at every one of those stages. And we know what it takes to move from one stage to the next. So healing truly is predictable. And but what was even so what was more interesting about that to me was now here I've been sharing the 5 stages and they're all in this book, Trust Again, which came out last year. And what I found out was, and what I see within the PBT Institute, even though there were 5 stages, most people get stuck in stage 3 out of the 5. So From Hardened to Healed is
Mhm.
all about stage 3.
Cool. And do you want to enlighten us more about what is stage 3?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
you know what? How about this? I'll run through the stages so people see the progression, see
Great.
where they get stuck in 3, and then what's waiting for you if you want to move to stage 4 and 5. So,
Awesome. Yeah.
okay. So stage 1 is like before it happens. And if you can imagine 4 legs of a table, the 4 legs being physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. What I saw with everyone in my study, including me, was this real heavy lean on the physical and the mental, the thinking and doing, and not really prioritizing the emotional and the spiritual, the feeling and being, right? But
Mhm.
imagine a table with only 2 legs, easy for that table to topple over. That's us. So
Mhm.
that's not to say if you're just busy thinking and doing, you will be betrayed. It was just the profile that I saw. So table topples over, stage 2, by far the scariest of all of the stages. And this is shock, trauma, D-Day, Discovery Day.
Mhm.
And it's the breakdown of the body, the mind, and the worldview. So here's where, right here, it's like the person takes a mask off and reveals who they've been this whole time. And it tattoos itself on your mind, on your heart.
Mhm.
And you ignite the stress response. So here you are now headed for every single stress related symptom, illness, condition, disease. You know this so well, right?
Yeah.
Your mind, this is your wheelhouse now. Your mind is in a complete and total state of chaos and overwhelm. This makes no sense. You can't wrap your mind around what you just learned. And your worldview has just been shattered. Your worldview is your mental model. It governs you. It prevents chaos. Don't go there. This person's safe. This is how life works. And in a moment, every rule you've ever had is no longer. The bottom is bottomed out and a new bottom hasn't been formed yet. It's terrifying. But think about it. If the bottom were to bottom out on you, what would you do? You'd grab hold of anything and everything you could to stay safe and stay
Right.
alive.
Yeah.
That's stage
Yeah.
3.
Yeah.
You know, survival instincts emerge. It's the most practical out of all of the stages. If you can't help me, get out of my way. How do I survive this experience? Where do I go? Who can I trust? How do I feed my kids? Like, it's practical. But here's the trap. Once you've figured out how to survive, you're like, okay, I got this. And
You got the
because
life raft. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
because it feels so much better than the shock and trauma of where you just came from, we think it's good. And because we don't know there's anywhere else to go, we don't know there's a stage 4, we don't know there's a stage 5. So because we don't know there's anywhere else to go, we start planting roots here. We're not supposed to, but we don't know that. And 4 things happen. The first thing is you start getting all of those small self benefits. You get to be right. You get someone to blame. You get a target for your anger. You get your story. And our stories can be pretty powerful, right? You get sympathy from everyone you tell your story to. You don't have to do the hard work of learning to trust again. Can I trust you? Should I trust you? Forget I'm not trusting anybody. So you plant deeper roots. And now because you're here longer than you should be, now the mind starts doing things like, well, maybe you're not all that great. Maybe you deserved it. Maybe this, maybe that. So you plant deeper roots because like energy attracts like energy. And these are the thoughts you're thinking. This is the energy you have. Now you start attracting people and circumstances and relationships towards you to confirm, yup, this is exactly where you belong. The misery loves company crowd, they come around now too. It gets worse, but I'll get you out of here. Because it feels so bad, but we don't know there's anywhere else to go. Right here is where we start using food, drugs, alcohol, work, TV, reckless behavior, whatever, anything to numb, avoid, and distract ourselves from what's so painful to feel or face. So think about it. You do this for a day, a week, a month. Now it's a habit, a year, 10 years, 20 years. And I can see someone 20 years out and say, that emotional eating you're doing, that drinking you're doing, that numbing in front of the TV you're doing, do you think that has anything to do with your betrayal? And they would look at me like I'm crazy. And they'd say that happened 20 years ago. But do you see? All they did was put themselves in stage 3 and stay there. Does that make sense?
Oh, totally. So it's kind of like having like a freeze response where you kind of get stuck in a certain place.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
you begin
First,
to believe that you've healed because you've gotten so much better, but you're actually in a place where you've kind of gotten stuck.
yeah, and especially because it's like they always talk about Roger Bannister, breaking the was it the 4-minute mile, one of those, and then all of a sudden everybody else thought it was possible, right? When we don't know there's a stage 4 or 5 to move towards, and we think, okay, well, I better figure out a way to make this work. Here we resign ourselves, and we're like, okay, well, here's where I stop, and this is where most people land and stay. And I saw it time and time again. So from hardened to healed, it's like stage 3ers, I'm coming for you, because transformation doesn't even begin until stage 4. And it's like you've
Right.
been through the worst of it already. You owe it to yourself to
Yeah.
heal.
Yeah.
You want me to go through the other stages?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Okay. So if you're willing to let go of the small self benefits and everything you get from it, then you have to grieve more than the last bunch of things you need to do. You move to stage 4. And stage 4 is finding and adjusting to a new normal. So here's where you acknowledge, I can't undo my betrayal, but I control what I do with it. And I always, and when you're in that mental space, you're turning down the stress response. You're not healing just yet, but you just stopped the massive damage you were causing in stage 2 and stage 3. What also happens is if you were, I always use the example, if you were to move to a new house, office, condo, apartment, like all your stuff's not there. It's not quite cozy yet, but it's going to be okay. And when you're in that space, you don't, if you were to move, you don't take everything with you. You don't take those things that don't represent who you've decided to be in that new space. And what I saw was, if your friends weren't there for you, you don't take them with you. Right here is where you've outgrown them. So people say to me all the time, what the heck? I've had these friends 10, 20, 30 years. Is it me? Yes, it is. You're undergoing a transformation. If they don't rise, they don't come. Very common. So if you feel you're outgrowing friends, very often it's because you're doing the work and, and they're staying where they were, and you're in a different space. When you've made this new mental space home, you're good with it, you move into the 5th most beautiful stage. And this is healing, rebirth, and a new worldview. The body starts to heal. Self-love. self-care, eating well, exercise. You didn't have the bandwidth for that earlier. Now you do.
Mm.
Your mind is healing. You're making new rules, new boundaries based on the road you just traveled. And you have a new worldview based on what you see so clearly. And remember the four legs of the table in the beginning, it was all about the physical and the mental. By this point, we're solidly grounded because we're focused on the emotional and the spiritual too. Those are the 5 stages.
That's awesome. And what if somebody so they got stuck in the freeze response and then they start to move forward? Is there a way where sometimes people will get stuck in that freeze response, but then also do some of the work in stage 4? So like they may still have some of these behaviors and
yeah, you tend to outgrow, you don't just, it's not a hard stop. You tend to outgrow a stage, but it kind of looks like this. It's like you're constantly moving, in the right direction, but it's not really smooth at all. But you're going back and forth until it's just you outgrow what you were doing, who you were being, what you were thinking as you move forward.
And can a person, so I remember years ago, I had a client who came in, she was in her late 70s, and in her 30s, her husband died. She never recovered. Can that also be viewed as like a betrayal? So because she never got past that, and her life was never the same afterwards.
Yeah, that was a betrayal of her expectations. We're going to grow old together. That's it. That's the plan. And then there was a different plan. And so there was that betrayal of expectations. She figured out how to survive her experience, and that's where she stopped. And that's the thing. We have people who take the post-betrayal syndrome quiz or the Healed or Hardened quiz, and they're struggling with these symptoms. And you would think this trauma just happened, recently. It could have happened decades ago. And on some level, it's worse when it happens decades ago because you've been marinating on this for years. And you know how the body works. I mean, how much of an assault can it continuously take?
Exactly.
Before it's like, listen, I'm doing the best I can here, but I'm being pummeled with just only this negativity and only this trauma and only this stuckness. And it's virtually impossible not to be sick when that's what's going on.
Right. Yeah. There's that whole idea of the autoimmune conditions being connected to betrayal or some long ago betrayal. So even in childhood, you could have a betrayal that you don't remember. And you could be stuck in that sort of situation as well.
The body remembers.
Yeah. I remember actually when I figured out that a lot of my childhood had been betrayal. And I woke up to it and I was like, oh my goodness. And this is how I've run my life. And so then I had to And
it's so common where, once someone sees this, then they get really angry. They're like, are you kidding me? I've been living 10, 20, 30, 40 plus years, because of that experience or my perception of that experience. The good news is you could have kept this going. So at whatever point you've learned this and you've realized this is where your new life begins. I mean, that's the beauty. We get to recreate who we are, and betrayal specifically lends itself to creating an entirely new identity because everything has been shattered. Your whole paradigm has been shattered. It's been leveled. So, you take the parts you love and you leave behind anything that no longer serves. And that's why we see people coming through the Institute in that stage 5. These are the strongest, most empowered, most confident people I've ever seen. Because think about it too. When you're betrayed this is the person you trusted the most. This is the person, these were the people who gave you a sense of safety and security. So when this is the person, these are the people to shatter that sense of safety and security, it's traumatizing.
Very much. Yeah, very much. Yeah. But to find a way past it so that you can go beyond is such a huge, amazing gift. I'm so happy that you're sharing all this information. I put the link to the quiz. Do you want to talk a little bit about what what the quiz will show people? Is
Sure. Which quiz? We're talking about the post-betrayal syndrome quiz?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah. So just to explain that was another one of the discoveries, that there's actually this collection of symptoms, physical, mental, and emotional, so common to betrayal. It's known as post-betrayal syndrome. So, we've had, I don't know, 45, probably 1,000 people who've taken the quiz to see to what extent they're struggling. And what's so interesting is, first of all, we've all been told and taught time heals all wounds. I have the proof that's not true, because there's a question that says, is there anything else you'd like to share? People say things like, my betrayal happened, 35 years ago. I'm unwilling to trust. My betrayal happened 15 years ago. Feels like it happened yesterday, and there are so many symptoms, just physical, mental, and emotional, left in the wake of this type of experience. Every few months, I pull the stats from the quiz. Would that help if I share some?
Oh, I would love that. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay. So now we have men, women, almost every country is represented. Every age is represented. So 78% constantly revisit their experience. 81% feel a loss of personal power. 80% are hypervigilant. You can imagine how exhausting that is. 94% deal with painful triggers. These are the most common physical symptoms. 71% have low energy. 68% have sleep issues. So, wake up, they're exhausted. 63% extreme fatigue. Your adrenals have tanked. 47% have weight changes. Now, in the beginning, maybe they can't hold food down. Later on, they're using food for comfort. 45% have digestive issues, and that's anything: Crohn's, IBS, diverticulitis, constipation, diarrhea, you name it. The most common mental symptoms: 78% are overwhelmed, 70% are walking around in a state of disbelief, 68% are unable to focus, 64% are in shock, 62% are unable to concentrate. So imagine you can't concentrate, you have a gut issue, you're exhausted, and you're supposed to work and raise your kids, right? That's not even the emotional ones. Emotionally, 88% experience extreme sadness. 83% are very angry. And it is so common to bounce back and forth between those two emotions. 82% are hurt. 80% have anxiety. 79% are stressed. Here's why I wrote the book Trust Again. Ready? 84% have an inability to trust. Inability. 67% prevent themselves from forming deep relationships because they're afraid of being hurt again. 82% might find it hard to move forward. 90% want to move forward, but they don't know how.
What a huge gift you're presenting with everybody with. Because like when I think about it, that's a good 85% of my patients.
Yeah, I bet.
And then if you expand that into the unremembered betrayals of childhood and things that happens when they're so young, then it's probably even 95%, that people suffer from these things for so long. Well, I'm going to be recommending your book to everybody.
Thank you so much. And I remember when you came into our community, and your work ties so beautifully with this, because it's such an important way to help heal. It hits us on every level, physically, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. So the work you do is so powerful in so many aspects of healing, for sure.
That's why we get to team up every once in a while.
I know. I love it.
Yeah. Because my specialty is really mystery illness and helping people with things that nobody seems to understand. And long before you get some autoimmune condition or a diagnosable health condition, you could be feeling crummy. And that's where I come in, is that, you may not get a diagnosis, and I'm able to help people get to that physical, and then I'll send them to you so that they can get.
And if I tell you how many times I've recommended your book also, that's the thing. Our work just ties so beautifully together. Betrayal is I look at it as one of the most painful of the human experiences.
Really
and with that, it's going to hit us on so many levels. And we need, an arsenal of support and systems and the right people to help us. So I just think the work you do is brilliant.
And I think the work you do is brilliant. I'm so grateful that you came today. And I know that everybody will watch this with great enthusiasm and go for your book. So I'm going to put the link to your book again right there. And thank you so much for coming. Do you have any final tips for
Yeah.
our
First I would say I know how painful it is. I've been there. There is no greater pain. And I've been in the ICU for 11 days. I've lost loved ones. So it's not like trauma is foreign to me, but this type of trauma, it's like a trauma, like, it's just, it hits you hard, but you can heal from all of it. We have the roadmap. We have the proof. Don't stay stuck. Staying stuck is a choice.
Thank you so much. I so
Thank you.
appreciate it. Yay. Thank you.